Hey guys, Tyler here, starting off with a new project covering all of the Pioneer mainstays and deck techs. And today we're starting off arguably the best deck in Pioneer, Izzet Phoenix. For the few of you that haven't heard of the namesake card, okay, Phoenix is 3 in a red. You get a 3/2 Fian case, but that's not important. Because it has the ability, if you play 3 instants and/or sorceries in the same turn before combat, it comes back and ready to attack that same combat. So it's super good at cheating on mana and bringing back multiple in one turn. This is the main thread of our deck, but it's also backed up by Thing in the Ice, which for 1 in a blue, you get a horror that is a 0/4, and it has 4 ice counters on it, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you remove a counter from it, and then when it has no counters left on it, it transforms into the backside, which turns into a 7/8 Awoken Horror, and then it also bounces all non-horror creatures to their oldest ends, both yours and your opponent's, so keep that in mind. And this provides both a fast clock and a semi-board wipe for all of the opponent's things, so they can't even block at the time you do it. And you can also do this instant speed, as it also gets the counters removed from instants. Next one, we're going to jump into our spells that make this deck tick. The first one is Charter Course, which is 1 AW to draw 2. And then discard if you haven't attacked. This card is great because in the early game you get to ditch your Phoenixes and any cards you're not useful in the matchup to fill your graveyard for your cards later on. Or late game, after you already have a board set up, it's just pure card advantage at a 2 mana draw 2, which is, as you guys know, a very good weight. Next one is probably the best card from Strixhaven, Expressive Iteration. For a blue and a red, you sorcery. You get the top 3 cards of your library, you put 1 into your hand, put 1 of them on the bottom of your library, and then you exile 1. And you can play that exile card to the end of turn. Most times with this card to play is on turn 3, where you play for 2 mana for it, put 1 card in hand, put a hand in exile, and put 1 random card on the bottom. So that way you draw your hand, play it, and you still keep card neutral. This is great on your Phoenix turns, and also late game, where it can just go Expressive Iteration, you draw 1 card, 1 spell, you exile 1 spell, bottom something you don't need, and then that's all 3 spells you need to bring back your Phoenixes. Next one, we have Sweltering Suns, which may seem a little odd in our, deck full of 3/2s, but this card is a house in the game 1s versus creature decks, while also just having the ability to be cycled away if we don't need it, or just discard it with Charter Course and those other effects we play. And then we get to probably the best card in the deck, Azrate. Now, this card does look very bad if you don't know what the effect Delve does. But this card is 7 in a blue, Treasure Cruise, Delve, and you draw 3 cards. So 8 mana draw 3 isn't that good. But Delve lets you exile a card from your graveyard instead of paying a Caius. So at best, this card is a 1 mana draw 3, or better known as Ancestral Recall, which is on the power 9 for a very good reason. So this is the other reason why we care so much about filling our graveyard. Next is Pieces of the Puzzle. For 2 in a blue, you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put 2 instants or sorceries among them into your hand. Do note you can't get all your Phoenixes, you can't get Thing in the Ice with this. You can only get instants or sorceries. And the rest go to the bin. This one fills up an entire Digger time almost by itself, as it usually puts between about 4 to 5 cards, depending on what you hit, into the bin. And it's also great either post board or versus Rakdos Pyromancer as a post go blank to fill up your hand and just make do and fill up your graveyard for those other cards you care about. Next one is Opt. If you've ever played any competitive format, you've probably seen Opt before. It's very simply just a blue for an instant. You scry 1. And then you draw a card. So this card is card neutral, only costs 1 mana, super good at bringing back your Phoenix. And in the same vein, Consider is an even better version of that. Because this one is 1 blue mana, same cost, but instead of scrying, you get to look at it and put it into your graveyard. So this card can put 2 cards into your graveyard, where Op can only put 1. And the second card is super good at filling up your graveyard for your Treasure Cruises, or just bidding any Phoenixes that happen to be on top of your deck. And then you just draw a card after you bin whatever the top card is, or keep it on top if you really want it. Next one, we start getting a little bit more situational. In Negate, for 1 in a blue instant, you just counter any target non-creature spell your opponent controls. It's super good, answers most things, and with our discard and other card selection engines, This card is not very likely to stick in our hand. Next one is the 2 mana damage spell we're working right now, the shock variant we're working with right now, which is 1 mana, do 2 damage to any target creature. And then the reason why I'm playing this one is Spell Mastery. If there are 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it deals 3 damage to that creature instead. So in this current mana, that 3 point of toughness is super important, as this gets to kill anything from Bone Crusher Giant, and then notably it gets to kill Arcanist on turn 2 or on turn 3 before it's able to get value off of it. Next one in the removal spell suite is Lightning Axe. For for 1 red, you get instant, and then as an additional cost, you either have to discard a card or pay 5. Most of the time, we're going to discard a card, like discarding our Phoenix and getting them out of our hands, or discarding in cards we're not useful, just to fill up our Desert Cruisers later on. And this card just simply deals 5 damage to a target creature. It is super good in the mirror, as it kills any of the thing in the ices we're worried about. And it typically kills most threats in the format, though there are a couple like Elder Gargoyle that do escape it. Next one in the last of our spells, but this one's all half spell, half hand. This was Spikeful Hazard for 1 red, instant. You deal 1 damage to any target, face, anything. And then if a permanent dealt this way would be die this turn, exile it instead. So if you do this to a Croxer, it's a great way to do that in response to its trigger. Exile it, so that way they can't bring it back in on. Or if you don't have that hand on turn 2 or on turn 1 and you really need a hand, you can play it as its backside as Spikefield Cave, which is just a tapped red source. Next turn, we're getting to our hands, which are super simple for Izzet mana base, considering we have our red blue fast hand. In this case, it's 2 Ions, 3 Mountains, 4 Spirebirth Canal, then it's 2 Sulfur Falls to check hand, 4 Steam Vents to shock hand, and then 4 of the red blue pathways and River Guide pathway. And then let's get on to our sideboard. Now, as always, sideboards change depending on what your meta looks like. But in this case, this is a good starter sideboard, and this is what people are playing as last I checked. We start with 1 Invasive Surgery, which is a blue instant, counter any target sorcery spell, and if you have 4 or more card types among types in your graveyard, it counters that spell, and it also removes all copies from your opponent's hand, graveyard, and your deck. So you get to look through that, and you get to see your opponent's hand, as well as exile any cards. This is super good versus Go Blank, as well as going good against Lotus Field, where you can exile cards like pull over the pages and make it super hard for them to win, especially with providing a fast clock with your boards and your thing in the ice. Next is 3 copies of Aethergust, which is 1 ABU instant. You get to choose target spell or permanent that is red or green, and the owner puts it on top or bottom of their library. They get to choose. This card is pretty much just a catch-all to any red or green spell that is either already resolved or is trying to resolve. So this is a great way to answer red wraths and anger of the gods from your opponents. Or just good threats, like if you need to answer a non-countable threat like Coma. This is a good way to put it off to the next turn, and just time walk your opponent. Next one we get to Entrancing Malady, which is X Bilbio sorcery, and you mind control a target creature of converted mana cost of X. This is super good against Blue White Insult, as most of their creatures are super cheap, but they become a 5/5s. So this is basically like an Uno reverse card to them. For 3 mana, you get to take their 5/5, or for 2 mana, you get to take their 5/5 Darkstairs Citadel, which is indestructible, that you can't normally deal with, but this lets you use it on your side of the battlefield. Next is Jace, 1 copy of Jace Widow of Izzet, which is 1 boo for a legendary Planeswalker. It has the Abman text, which basically says if you draw a card when you have no cards in your library, you would win the game instead of losing the game. And then +1, target player mills 2 cards, and then you draw a card. And then its ultimate is draw 7 cards, and then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. This is just so if you -8 it and it dies before the ability resolves, you still win the game. And then this card is just a great value engine versus control, as well as just being good against grindy decks, as it gives you a way to win if they answer your graveyard, or just if you run the risk of milling out of your library, which, like we always say, this deck draws a lot of cards. So it's a very real chance that you can get to the bottom of your library at the end of almost every game. And this card gives you a way to win through graveyard hate, or if they've answered all of your threats. Next is a staple card in any blue deck, and 4 against any blue deck, which is Mystical Dispute. 2 in a blue instant. This spell costs 2 years to cast if it target abuse spell, and then counter target spell, yes, it pays 3. So it's either a 1 mana manic or a 3 mana manic, depending on if it targets abuse spell or not. Next is the 4th copy of Pieces of the Puzzle, which, as we said before, it's just very good after Go Blank, and just very good as a grind engine in general. Next, we get to our red spells, which is, once again, the 4th copy of Lightning Axe. You gotta kill those opposing Thing in the Ices, or any other big threat that you need to answer to. This is pretty much, like I said, the catch-all. Next, we finish out our Wrath cycle in 2 Anger of the Gods, which is just Arcaius, red, deals 3 damage to each creature. And then if they would die this turn, exile them instead. This seems a little bit awkward to play with Phoenixes, but it's super good in the mirror, while also just being very good against your creature stacks, since it doesn't kill Thing in the Ice, which is something to worry about. And then kind of the spicy one that I've seen a lot of hype around. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying it's great. I have not personally part of it, but I can definitely see the appeal. It's Eternal Scourge. 3 colorless mana for a 3/3. You may cast this card from exile, and then when it becomes the target of a spell ability and opponent controls, exile it. So this card cannot be killed with removal, as it just, well, it cannot be permanently dealt with. It can't be permanently dealt with besides of sacrifice effects. And even if you do meld into the graveyard, you can get it later, either through your opponent playing things like Rest in Peace, or you just delving around the Eternal Scourge to pay your treasure cruisers. So your treasure cruisers draw 4 cards, effectively. And though it may be a 3/3 for 3, so like not that big of a body, it is just always there and is always hard to kill, which is the real reason why we play it here. And then, in closing, I really think this deck is one of the most powerful decks in Pioneer at the moment, and to be 100% honest with you, I would not be surprised if in the future, if we got any more pieces that push the Delve spells, that it's ended up getting Treasure Cruise banned in this format. It has the power to fight through any and every piece of hate that you see through it, and it can't really be fought out of the meta, and I don't really see it ever being pushed out of the top tables. Yes, all of the meta shifts in a major different directions, all of those big bans. And as always, guys, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this here deck tech, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I think next we're going to be doing Naya Winota, the new Wolf version.